Hello students, it's time for 6th grade book talk. Today's book talk theme is immigration. Does anyone know what immigration means? Immigration is a specification of the word migration. To migrate means simply to move or travel, but to immigrate means to travel to another country to live. Have any of you ever immigrated in your lifetime? Even if you have never immigrated, I bet you that someone in your family has immigrated. My mom's great-great-grandparents immigrated to the United States from Germany, but my dad immigrated to the United States directly from India. He immigrated here to attend college, and that's where he met my mom. I bet you've heard a lot in the news about immigration lately, but the truth is, immigration has been happening for thousands of years. People immigrate for a variety of reasons: to live closer to their family members, find a new place to work, to escape dangerous situations, to live somewhere that allows them the freedom to practice their religion, to have access to food, water, and other resources, and to find adventure or new experiences. Sometimes an immigrant is also called a refugee if they are forced to leave their home country due to a natural disaster, war, or persecution. I sincerely hope that in your lifetime you are never forced to leave or immigrate against your will. But you could choose to immigrate to a new place. If you could choose to immigrate to a new place, would you? Where would you go? But first, have you ever thought about what it might be like to immigrate to a new place? Immigrating can be scary because not everyone lives the same way we do here, and we don't live the same way that everyone else does. In fact, the farther away you get from here, the more different things become. For example, if I went to Egypt and sprinkled salt on my food, I might accidentally offend my host because salting one's food is considered an insult to the person who made it. If I'm in Venezuela and I'm invited to someone's house for a meal and I show up on time, they might find me rude because in that country it's customary to show up late, otherwise one appears too eager or greedy. And in Norway, it's really important that I would need to learn to use my utensils at all times, even when eating a sandwich and french fries. Otherwise, people would probably look at me funny. And what about the difference in languages? How would you communicate with others if you immigrated to their country and you didn't speak their language? So the first book about immigration that I want to share with you is called Home of the Brave, which was written by Katherine Applegate. It is about a boy named Kek, who is a refugee of the wars in Sudan, which is a country in Africa. He arrives in Minnesota in the middle of the winter, after losing both his father and his brother in the war. And he moves there to live with his aunt and cousin. He's not sure if his mom is alive or when they will find her. But for the first time, Kek sees and experiences the cold and the snow and the sensation of flying on an airplane. And Kek says, "When the flying boat returns to earth at last, I open my eyes and gaze out the round window. What is all the white? Where is all the world?" How do you think you'd react if you'd never seen snow or experienced the cold before? Would you act like Kek? The first friend that Kek makes is a sad little cow he sees as they drive past a farm. Kek reflects, "To see her here in this strange land made my eyes glad." Well, that's probably because in his old home in Africa, his family raised the cattle together, which gave them a purpose in the world and helped them survive. Well, this sad little cow reminds Kek of his family and his home, and connects him with his old life as he struggles to make a new life in this new world. I stroke her cold, wet coat, and for a moment I hold all I've lost and all I want right there in my hand. Kek meets friendly people in his ESL class, which makes him feel less alone. And Kek says, "I look at our faces and see all the colors of the earth: brown, pink, yellow, and white, and black. And we are all here sitting at the same desks, wanting to learn the same things." There are some funny parts in this book, like when Kek tries to help his aunt by washing dishes, and he puts them in the clothes washing machine, which breaks them, of course. This helps him bond with a girl from his school who also lives in his apartment complex, and she helps try to glue them back together. "How come you're helping me?" Keck asks Hannah. "I don't know. I guess I've moved around a lot myself. Not like you, but I kind of know what it's like not to know things." Keck is brave, and he goes out to find himself a job helping take care of the cow. This job helps him meet a nice lady named Lou, and this job plays a big part in helping his cousin adjust to life in America. What will happen when Lou says she has to sell the cow? Will Keck ever see his mother again? Does Keck ever get used to life in America? Well, to find out the answers to these questions, you have to read the book, Home of the Brave by Katherine Applegate. So the next book about immigration that I want to share with you is called West of the Moon by Margie Preuss. This story takes place about 175 years ago in the country of Norway. Astrid, the girl in the story, her father took off to find a new life in America and left her and her sister Greta to live with their aunt and cousins. Well, her aunt sells Astrid to work on the farm of a man who owns goats, and he makes her life miserable. There, she meets a girl that spins wool, and she meets a boy who says he is traveling to America. The spinning girl presses a damp rag to my face and wipes the blood and filth from my limbs. When I'm clean as I'm going to get, she goes back to her work. As she spins her yarn, I spin a golden dream out of dust motes, a dream of going to America. Throughout this book, Astrid frequently compares the events in her life to fairy tales. She says, "In the stories, someone always comes to rescue the princesses." That's what I tell her. But as my wheel whirs, my mind whirs along with it, and soon I've run out of golden thread with which to spin my pretty stories, and am left with a thin thread of truth. And that wiry, rough little thread tells me that if anyone is going to do any rescuing from this place, it's going to have to be me. Astrid and the spinning girl eventually escape the goat farm, and they collect her sister Greta, and the three of them traverse the fields and the forests of the wild Norwegian mountain to find the sea and the boat destined for America. How do they escape the clutches of the goat herder? Do they ever make it to the boat? Who is the spinning girl? Well, to find out the answers to these questions, you have to read the book. It's called West of the Moon by Margie Preuss. So next, I have a short book called Immigration by Peter Benoit. So, unlike the last two books, which are fiction, this book is nonfiction, which means it's based on facts and history. Now, I know that nonfiction books are not necessarily as fun to read as fiction books, but I encourage you to try it sometime because it's really important to know the information that's in these books. This book, called Immigration, talks about the history of immigration from the first immigrants in North America to the many groups of immigrants that traveled to the United States during the 1800s. Scandinavian immigrants, Armenian, Chinese, Italian, Irish, and more. This book teaches you about important United States laws related to immigration and about the individuals who are influential in these immigration laws. So by reading this book, you'll have a great understanding of why people immigrate, how long people have been immigrating, what rights immigrants have, and how our country chooses to handle immigration. So when you hear people on TV talking about immigration, sometimes they fail to correctly interpret the topic of immigration. They don't always understand that immigration has always been a part of our history and it will continue to be. And it's important that you understand this history so that when someone asks you what you think about immigration, you can respond intelligently with some context and knowledge. And so reading this book is one step towards educating you about immigration issues. And it is called Immigration by Peter Benoit. So last, I have a book here called The Arrival by Shaun Tan. Now this book is very different than the last 3 books. It is shorter and there are no words. Exciting, right? But don't let that fool you and don't rush through it just because it's wordless and full of pictures. For those of you that may be unfamiliar with these types of books, this is what we might call a graphic novel. And in this particular graphic novel, because there are no words telling you what is happening in the story, you have to figure out what is happening using the pictures. You might even practice doing a little of your own storytelling while you read it, which is a really good skill to have. I suggest reading it more than once. First, read it several times silently, looking closely at each picture. What details do you notice? What emotions on the people's faces, what do they tell you? What is the location? What do the color of the images tell you? Then read it again, describing what you see out loud, perhaps imagining the narrative is happening to someone you know or to a distant relative of yours. Or imagine that you're the character, experiencing what the character in here experiences. How would you feel if this story was your story? So the way I would tell it is, in this book, my great-great-grandfather in Germany says a tearful goodbye to my great-great-grandmother and my great-grandmother. He travels an extensive distance by both boat and train with other immigrants, and he arrives in this foreign place where everything is different. He is an immigrant, which means he has moved somewhere completely new and must adapt himself to a new place because the place won't adapt to him. He has to figure out all over again how to communicate using new methods, how to navigate the unfamiliar streets, how to eat a new type of food, and how to accomplish his goals in a completely new environment. So, who does he meet? And what experiences will he have? How will he find money and work to support himself? Will he ever see his wife and daughter again? And what is the little creature on the cover of this book? Well, you have to read this book to find out. It's called The Arrival by Shaun Tan. So, just to review, the 4 books I talked about today were called Home of the Brave by Katherine Applegate, West of the Moon by Marjorie Proust, Immigration by Peter Benoit, and The Arrival by Shaun Tan. You can find all these books at quite a few locations around Iowa. So if your library doesn't have it, see if your public library can interlibrary loan it for you from another Iowa library. And that's all I have for you. So that is my book talk on immigration and fiction and nonfiction books related to immigration. So I hope you have a chance to read some of these books. And if you find any that I haven't mentioned today, let me know. I would love to hear about them. Bye!